that we hitting that 42nd, let's go. I heard that we hitting that 34th, let's go. I heard that we hitting that 14th, let's go. Let's go, let's go, let's go. What? I heard that we hitting that Union Square, let's go. I heard that we hitting that Howard Square, let's go. I heard that we hitting that Times Square, let's go. Let's go, let's go, let's go.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Built in the Bronx podcast. I am your unfamiliar but excited host for this episode, Aaliyah Daisy, joined by Maximilian Hill, and we have the wonderful opportunity to be speaking with Miss Louvere Walker-Hannon. She is an applications engineering senior team lead at MathWorks, a Northeastern University alum, and an instructor for Black Girls Code. How are you doing today?
I am doing well, Aaliyah. I hope you and Maximilian are doing well also.
Doing great, doing great. So before we go and start in some of the questions that we've come together and found from the student body, I wanted to pick your brain on, I guess, the ending of the year, since tomorrow marks the end. 2024 has come to an end, and I wanted to know, since I've been coming and learning some more about the was it OpenAI's it was 12 days that they showed off different features and different things that they were building. Since AI is the boom and everybody has AI, what are your thoughts on AI and like its implementation and even like your own daily life and work?
This is a great question, Aaliyah. Thank you so much for the question. By the way, thank you for having me on the podcast too. So, in terms of my overall thoughts about AI, there are three themes that I have right now related to AI. So, obviously, AI is everywhere we can imagine and everywhere where we cannot imagine. So, going future forward, thinking about, well, we're close into 2024. Where do we go from here? So, as a part of what I'm thinking about AI, one of the biggest themes is trying to think about where it is being used and where is the potential for it to be used coming up future forward, but also trying to explore if it is being used, trying to ask some additional questions. Does it make sense for it to be used for certain applications in certain industries? And also, what are we doing in society related to, are there certain areas where there could be improvement related to the usage of AI? So I think a lot of us are familiar with certain applications where AI is in use, but certain communities are impacted in, I'll say this in a negative manner, with regard to the usage of AI for some of these applications. So that's one kind of major theme. So yes, it is everywhere, but when it is being used, can we ask additional questions and discover more related to, does it make sense for AI to be used in certain applications? My second point about the usage of AI, I know, for example, in everyday life, it has become a huge part of my life, whether it is a recommendation for a particular tool that I'm using in terms of what music I'm listening to, what shows or other items I may purchase, but also it's in use related to my own work. For example, being able to streamline the process of creating, let's say, documentation for certain tasks. And then a third overall theme is for AI for myself. It's been a topic of interest for me for quite some time because for a part of my role, I do have the opportunity to work with customers who are implementing AI in their task. So I get to, for example, in some cases, write code related to AI algorithms or provide recommendations related to how AI could be used. So hopefully that answers that question.
Yes, yes, thank you. Like I've asked even some of the professors at Lehman, like the idea of like using AI as like a tool that it's not necessarily like gonna replace everybody, but we can use this to in addition to the work that we do to improve what we do. So
Yes.
yes. Yeah, thank you. And I guess to go a little more into your role at MathWorks. You talked a little bit more about it. Can you even talk a little even more about what you
Yes.
do at MathWorks.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm in the application engineering group. So this is one of the customer facing groups at MathWorks, where we directly work with customers who are using MathWorks technology to implement a variety of tasks for many different applications within many different industries. MathWorks, I don't know if people are familiar, it's a software company, and we make a variety of software packages, but our main platforms are MATLAB and Simulink, and there's several other products. And as a part of being in a customer facing role, what's unique about this role is not only do we interface with the customers, but people in application engineering also have a technical background. And people in this group have a variety of different areas of technical expertise. So, for example, for myself, I have technical expertise in not just AI and data science, but a lot of image processing, signal processing, and remote sensing related applications. And then, as a part of my role, I have a team of engineers who I work with, and those engineers each have their own technical areas of expertise. So, yep, there's AI, but there's also robotics, autonomous systems, and other related topics where we assist MathWorks customers. Right now, for that particular role, I've been with the application engineering group for a while, but I will say this, I've been with MathWorks for 24 years this year. That means
Mm-hmm.
next year I'll be with MathWorks for 25 years. And very happy to say I was able to use their software while in school, also for working, and also now, being at the company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I I saw a little bit about like some of the products that MathWorks works on. And I guess you said that you use some of them while you're in school.
That's
Uh
correct.
so concerning, I guess, like work in school, uh I'm curious, like how might you have like balanced the two while you were in school?
Absolutely. So I think this is just what's happening for so many of us over the past few years. So how do you do, it sounds like the question is related to how do you possibly have a semi work life balance when you're working and or maybe being at school or doing a whole lot of other things. So one of the biggest items I tried to think about was time management, because one of the biggest themes is all of us probably have run into this where we can be so focused on a particular task, whether it's related to work or school, and we're not necessarily paying attention to others. So I would try to come up with a schedule to say,
Mm,
okay, now's time for, let's say, studying and schoolwork. Now is time devoted to task for work and possibly other areas of life. So time management was a huge, huge factor for me, as well as creating a schedule. I'm a person that tries to use a schedule to help me with implementing my task, but I know that may not be the case for other people. So do what you think is helpful for you. But I think as a part of that equation, time management, I think it has to be there, because without it, I think that once again, people may be interested in focusing on certain topics versus others, and something gets neglected, something gets left out. The other piece too that I try to think about is yes, work is important, school is important, but you also need time to do something to give yourself a break. So try to find that additional release or outlet. So for me, I love listening to music. I love trying to hang out with friends and or family members as well. So try to also find that time to have some sort of release to take a break.
mhm, mhm. Curious, what kind of music do you like?
I like all types of music. So I have to admit, I grew up in New York City. So one of the biggest items for me is I'd say there's definitely a foundation related to a lot of, I'll say this, a lot of hip hop, R&B, but I also like many other types of music. So I can listen to a lot of reggaeton. I can listen to, let's say, classical music. So it runs the gamut. So I love mostly, all types of music. Maybe there's like a very rare type of music I wouldn't listen to.
Okay, okay, that's good, that's good. All righty, all righty.
Hey,
Okay.
Lou,
Yes.
where in New York are you from?
So I was born in Manhattan, but raised out in Queens, in Corona, Queens. I actually went to high school in Flushing, New York. I went to Townsend Harris High School at Queens College.
Very, very cool.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously we're based in the Bronx.
I know.
I don't think all of our students live in the Bronx, though. I know several
Okay.
who were in Queens.
Okay. There we go.
always great seeing a New York native doing their thing. So
Yes,
very
Thank
cool.
you. Thank you.
yeah. Okay. I want to get and jump into some of the like student-based questions. So
Yes.
I have a list of questions. So let me see if I can let me bring them up here.
I hope I can answer them well. It gives some helpful information. So let's see.
All righty. A question that one of the alumni asked were do you have any resources in mind that recent grads could use to facilitate their entry into this tough market?
That is a wonderful question. So I have to admit, in terms of my role, I'm not necessarily, I'm going to say, as heavily involved as recruiting as the people in recruiting are at my company, but I do a lot of recruiting related, I'll say, activities. So one of the items that I think as a resource for a number of individuals in this job market is, I would say, LinkedIn, because I think that LinkedIn provides a number of resources for those who are looking to highlight what they can do skill set wise. So even having their LinkedIn profile set up, let alone LinkedIn also has resources to help people who are seeking positions and roles. So they could, for example, it's not just putting up a flyer that says, I'm interested in a position, but more so to actively look for roles that are in alignment related to what you have in your LinkedIn profile. Another resource that I found interesting, but I will say this, I'd say also take it with a bit of a grain of salt in the fact that think about who's writing some of this information. So Glassdoor, the reason why I mentioned Glassdoor is because it gives some information from, in a lot of cases, from an employee perspective of their experience at a particular organization. Keep in mind, in terms of who's giving this feedback, you're going to get people who've had a variety of experiences. I'm not saying their experience will be yours, but it's helpful to possibly be able to get some insight into an organization before possibly exploring them, before possibly interviewing with an organization. So I've had quite a few colleagues who have highlighted that they found out some interesting information about an organization prior to possibly going for an interview with an organization using Glassdoor. But there's another piece going back to LinkedIn. So for LinkedIn, many of us who are on LinkedIn, you can see our profiles. Our profiles are typically available for, I'm going to say, for viewing, and you could potentially connect with people who are a part of an organization that you're interested in possibly applying for and reach out to them. And in a lot of cases, people are willing to speak to others to share their experiences. Now, does this happen all the time? Not per se, but I know people have connected with me and who've asked me questions about, what's your experience at, whether it's a volunteer organization or my current company. I'm one of the people who's probably willing to answer questions and connect with people. But LinkedIn definitely, Glassdoor, I'd say, to get some additional insight. A third resource that I have seen people use, I'm going to say fairly successfully, is literally, I'm going to say this, going to your, I'd say this, not just your search engines, but I'm going to put it out there, tools such as these generative AI tools, such as ChatGPT and others, where you could possibly put in inquiries related to the roles and the, I'm going to say, characteristics that are being sought after related to certain roles that are out there. So those are, three, I'm going to say, higher level suggestions I have right now.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, yes, definitely LinkedIn. I know since being at Lehman is been like taught, there's like a whole course there. Professors have consistently told us to keep our LinkedIn's up to date as one of like the best ways to like leverage what we have and be able to basically market ourselves to
Right.
recruiters and to people to connect and things like that.
Yeah.
So
Right. And just, oh, Maximilian, I know you were going to
One thing
say
I'm going
something.
to mention is I think statistic that I read is only 1% of people on LinkedIn post actively. So I mean,
It's interesting. For the circles that I travel in, that is not the case.
yeah. Well, I would say in general, like
Right.
the overall like LinkedIn community. I mean, you think about that, it's really, I mean, putting yourself out there is a little scary, right? But if you do step forward, right, you're standing out right away. And if you do it every day for a year, right, you'll build a following. I think a friend of mine has he built like a 50,000 person following on
And that
LinkedIn. And
that
I
doesn't
said,
surprise
how did
me.
you do that? And he said 100 comments a day for like 2 years on
Yes,
people in his network, but also people outside of his network who he wanted to meet. And,
absolutely.
sometimes those people will connect with you, sometimes they won't, but you have to get kind of in the habit of flexing that muscle of, reaching out to people.
Absolutely, absolutely. And two quick other items as well. So, in addition to recruiters being on LinkedIn, you also have hiring managers who are on LinkedIn who want to see, in addition to this resume that so and so has given me, what are they doing on LinkedIn? What do they post about?
Mm,
Is this information that, I see on the resume, what's possibly the connection that I'm seeing based on what's on LinkedIn versus the resume? There's another component too. So, this past year in 2024, I've had the opportunity to attend a few different conferences. Where as a part of attending those conferences, in addition to possibly presenting at the conference, I've also had the opportunity to be at a table in the career fair for these different conferences. And one of the major themes I've noticed is a number of people are leveraging conferences to try to find different roles. So that's another tool that could be explored. I do realize for some individuals going to a conference, yes, there are expenses that are incurred, but a number of organizations may offer scholarships to be able to attend these conferences, but a number of organizations, a number of professional societies do have conferences where there's typically a career fair, and a number of people have highlighted they've had certain levels of success, whether it's finding an internship and or a full-time role. Just to add that in there too.
mhm. Okay, yeah, that sounds great. Because I've even been recommended by many professors and myself to go to these different conferences to be able to not only leverage LinkedIn, but interacting in person, that you can make your mark there. People will remember you in person in the flesh. So yeah,
Yeah.
most
I,
definitely.
in-person meetings are invaluable these days. I think the best analogy I heard was like um, in-person meetings are rare, are like caviar. They're rare and expensive. And Zoom meetings are like McDonald's. They're cheap and they're everywhere, right?
Mhm.
So if you get that opportunity to meet someone in person at like a meetup or a conference, and in New York City, let's face it, there's endless opportunities to meet people in person, right? You
Mm.
can, that's definitely one way to be memorable. I think part of networking, half the battle is being memorable, right? So yeah, if you can leverage an in-person meetup, definitely take advantage of that.
I want to say being memorable in a good way.
Of course. Yes, yes, yes.
Because you
You
can
don't
be
want to be the
memorable.
person who had like broccoli in their teeth. And like, oh, you get that moment with the CEO. You spend 10 years and years and years building up to this moment. And then-
So yes, I've heard a fair share of stories where people have been memorable, but there's been a lot of variation in terms of was that memorable component helpful or not.
Mm.
So
Yes, yes, yes.
So,
Uh,
Lavira, I have a quick question for you.
yes, yes.
So, I'm not sure how much interaction you've had with uh, recent graduates or, people who are just finding their way into the workforce.
I've had a lot of interaction.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yes.
And that's part of the reason why we had you on the podcast. Um, so one of the things I've learned is it's better to learn um, from the people who have gone before you, as opposed to learning everything the hard way, right?
Mhm.
So, what are some common mistakes that you've seen recent grads who are at MathWorks make that potentially our students at Lehman could avoid making and save them some time and trouble?
That is a great question. So I would say, yes, we're talking about recent grads, but I'd just say in general, these are items we want to avoid. So, one of the items I want people to think about is, that organization hired you because of your skill set, your expertise, and other items that you demonstrated. So, one of the first items I'd say is organizations, at least I'm speaking from a MathWorks perspective now, you know, they're going to train you and give you resources to help learn about your role, learn about the organization, learn about the culture of the organization. And one of the themes I notice sometimes with people is, and particularly recent grads, not wanting to ask questions. I don't understand that because you're newer to the organization and there isn't, at least in my experience, there isn't this understanding that you should know everything. It's one of those scenarios where do not be afraid to ask questions. In fact, a lot of people, myself included, will see that as a sign of not just being inquisitive, but a sign that you're heavily invested, like you want to learn and know more. For some reason, I've seen scenarios where people don't ask questions and they go for like months on end doing something a certain way, and turns out that way wasn't efficient or helpful, and find out 6 months later, oh, I could have done this in a more streamlined manner. So ask questions.
Yeah,
I don't,
that's a huge
yeah,
huge hack. I mean, ask good questions because like you said, it demonstrates curiosity but also interest. I do
yes,
think I do think there is a little bit of fear in asking questions. And I
yes,
think that's the most common reason. I mean, I know when I was starting out, I was afraid to ask questions.
Mhm.
Like,
I was too for a
and
time.
like
Yes,
because you see these people with these fancy titles, and it's kind of intimidating. And you don't want to look silly, but you got to get over it. I think, and if you can ask good questions, you will stand out because most people they don't ask good questions.
exactly. The second item that I'm noticing and I've seen and witnessed, and maybe in some cases experienced, make certain you internally network. So you made it into this organization, you made it into this role, congratulations. But guess what? There's an entire company. It's not just you in your one group or your one department. So internally network, learn about other groups, try to make connections with other people in those other groups. It may help you in a variety of ways. For example, for myself, being able to connect with other people in other groups at MathWorks has allowed me to find resources who I could reach out to later on to ask questions, to find other resources, and to do certain tasks. So internally network. Don't just think, oh, it's my one group. It's like, no, there's a large organization in most cases. Or even if someone is at a startup, there are different groups or different departments even in that startup. So internally network.
Yes, I think that's. Uh, I was working with a student who got a job, and then we were talking about LinkedIn. He's like, "Yeah, I don't feel like I need to keep networking anymore." I was like, "No, you do,
No,
and
all the time.
because for better or for worse, I mean, I think you're like the exception. There aren't too many people who spend 20 years at a company anymore, and
True.
um, if you don't have a network, you know, especially even if it's not an active network outside, it could be very difficult. And so, yeah, even when you get the job, it's important that you network because now you need to have allies within the organization, because if you're just a one-man island, you're in a dangerous spot. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes, and leveraging those resources. I love the usage of the word you use, Maximilian, allies. There's also the usage of the word accomplices. Yes, those individuals are very important to, in a lot of cases, your possible career growth and trajectory at these organizations. And then the third item that stands out is I remember when I first started to work full time, kept saying, okay, I'm going to focus on work and yeah, have a bit of a social life. But going back to that theme of networking, also see about networking externally. And how do you do that? So, in my worldview, I know in a large city like New York City, there's a lot of opportunities, but you also want to try to, I'm going to say, narrow down and also think about proactively who you want to be a part of your network. Because I'm sure a lot of people know that, there's a saying, your network is your net worth. So you want to be around people who are making some positive moves and who are going to, help you probably grow and do things that will be helpful to you. Let's say this versus harmful. So, in other words, you may want to consider joining some professional organizations or start volunteering with organizations to help you not only learn new skills and meet new people, but also potentially to help out with that external networking.
Yeah. Lou, we've got about a minute left.
Sure.
I just want to real quick, I met you at an event that you were speaking at, and can you talk about the value of public speaking?
Absolutely. So thank you, Maximilian, for the question. I think that the value of public speaking is humongous. One of the reasons why is because you get to have the opportunity to share your knowledge with individuals, but you also have the opportunity in that moment to learn from individuals as well. Because typically, as a part of public speaking, it's not just you giving a monologue, it's in a lot of cases, it's a dialogue. At least that's the way I feel it should be. So
Yeah.
you get to highlight what you can demonstrate to others, but you can also learn from them. And
And you're visible, which
and
is
you're
so
visible.
important.
Yes,
If you're at a
absolutely.
big corporation and you're not visible, right? Do you even
That's
exist,
right.
right?
That's right.
So,
It's a
Lavere,
quick way to
we just
stand
want
out.
to thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely.
If any Lehman students want to reach out, should they reach out
Yes.
via LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely. So reach out via LinkedIn. I also have my MathWorks email address as lwalker@mathworks.com. So
Perfect.
I think
Perfect.
both of you have that. So
All
yes.
right. Lavere, thank you for coming on the Built in the Bronx podcast.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much
much.